What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Vanguard. Thanks so much for tuning in. We got an extra juicy show for you guys today. Lots of good stuff to talk about. What's up, Zach?
What's up, dude? Going full TMZ guard today as we dive deep into, honestly, something that had to be discussed once and for all. What the fuck happened to Jackson Hinkle? What the fuck happened to this dude? So, hear me out. I always thought the guy was annoying, and I never liked him. And admittedly, we were a little rude to the guy, by just ignoring him when he reached out to us in good friendship earlier on in his career, because I just thought he smelled fishy, man. I just didn't trust the guy. I was like, Gavin, I don't fuck with this guy. Like, if you really want to do something with him, like, you can. Anyway. But then it all started to unravel, and it turns out all my bad vibes, bad energy about that dude. We could trace it back further along, but it all culminated in his red pilling. We're gonna get into all of that because he is a massive content creator that is just actively feeding the right at this point. So we'll be talking about that. But I wanted to do a massive sports guard segment for everybody today as well. And so after we shout out our patrons, I want to talk a little bit about the UFC. I want to talk about how Dana White is one of the biggest piece of shit billionaires in America. And I want to talk about how even at the highest levels of sport, even if you rise to the pinnacle of combat sports, of sports of any kind, really, you are still an employee, you are still a worker, and you are still subject to the same kind of turmoil, even if it's at a way that's more distant from you, right? You still don't have the control that you have, and it's still a power imbalance in a worker boss relationship that I think does a really good job at just laying bare how no matter how much money you're making, no matter how much success and clout and fame you achieve, your boss still can kind of manipulate you, extort you, and at times take your career away, as we're going to talk about happened with Dana White and Francis Ngannou. But as always, big shout out to the patrons to keep this show afloat. Big shout out to everybody tuning in live. Hit that like and subscribe button.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everyone for tuning in today. Huge shout out to the patron community. You guys know the links in the description. Hit that up if you want to support the show, if you enjoy our content. It's the best way to keep us sustainable and keep the show healthy. So like I said, a huge shout out to the patron community. We would not be able to do this without you guys. The Vanguard is made 100% possible by our patron support. So like I said, the link's always going to be found in the description of all of our content. Hit that up. Hit that up. Even just $5 a month goes a really long way. And as Zach said, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel as well if you're not already. That's also, of course, a great way to support the show. Always hitting that like button, really, really good way to help us beat the algorithm. So thank you guys so much. And shout out to you, Jonathan Boyle, for the first super chat of the live stream. Beef is on the menu tonight, eh? Absolutely correct, Jonathan. In fact, I even broke out my White Castle tea because beef is on the menu. You're correct, Jonathan.
Beef's the only thing on the menu. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Beef. We are middle Americans after all here. But yeah, shout out to you, Jonathan. We'll
also. Go ahead. I was just going to say, also, everyone make sure to stick around for the end of today's live stream. At the end of today's show, we're going to be dropping a pretty big, exciting announcement that you guys will not want to miss. So like I said, make sure to watch throughout and stick around till the end. We have an exciting announcement for you guys. So really, really excited for that. But with all that said, let's plow right into today's program.
Programming. Yes, let me pull up the program. Yes, for the geriatric ward. No. Okay. So yes, this is something that I wanted to talk about a little bit here. Let me pull up the Vanguard Twitter. I tweeted about this yesterday. So even at sports highest level, workers are exploited and discarded. Shout out to the heavyweight champ, Francis Ngannou, for having the courage to stand up to the billionaire bully Dana White, who is basically not just the face, but the singular brain at this point. There are a couple of other primary moneyed interest in the UFC, but if you're not familiar, Dana White is the guy, both from a PR standpoint and also from he is the boss. He is in charge. He made $1 billion off the UFC. He's a wife beater. I don't know if you guys saw that in the news. He beat the shit out of his wife on
New Year's Eve, right?
Yeah. And then just we could talk about it. He's not a great guy, right? But then Francis Ngannou kind of lays down the law here, and and Dana White's been a real piece of shit to Francis Ngannou for the longest time. He's a real piece of shit to any fighter that tries to stand up for what's right, who tries to advocate for other fighters. And he'll come in here, and this man is like the scariest man in the world. Francis Ngannou, if you are the heavyweight champion of the UFC, you are probably one of the most brutally fucking dangerous people with your bare hands on planet Earth. In fact, I remember when they were really promoting Francis Ngannou, they would measure the force of his punch off of that of a car accident. Okay. He has the world's hardest punch ever recorded. It's like being hit by a sledgehammer. Okay. This man is a dangerous guy, like a world-class professional mixed martial artist. And he has an insane upbringing. So he was born in Cameroon, and at 10 years old, this dude, to fucking make money to survive as a 10-year-old. Think about the last 10-year-old kid you looked at, okay? Just to fucking think about this for a second. That's like second or third grade, I think. 10 years old, he's digging sand in sand pits to survive in Cameroon for little bits of money. He's digging fucking sand, and he finally gets old enough, and he makes his way illegally to Europe. He gets jailed for like 6 months in Spain for illegally crossing the border from Cameroon, just searching for a better life. He makes his way to Paris, where he's homeless, living in the subway system, like sleeping inside of staircases, okay, in Paris, France, nowhere to go, doesn't really, know anybody at all, no government documents, nothing. He starts working out in a gym and becomes heavyweight champion of the fucking world and mixed martial arts. So this guy's a hugely inspiring story, just from like, it's a huge Hollywood story right here. This guy should be promoted across the board. I mean, they should not be shutting the fuck up about this guy and how brilliant and amazing his story is. And they should want him to be UFC champion forever, because you could sell so many t-shirts, hoodies, merchandise. You could sell fights, all kinds of stuff off of this guy's story. I mean, who doesn't want to see this guy go out and get it? I mean, he took the belt from another really likable heavyweight, which they also kind of fucked over, Stipe Miocic, but that's a different story for people who don't care. Anyway, long story short, this guy is like a hero. He has the biggest hero's journey arc you could ever imagine, right? And for the UFC to let this guy get away while he has the strap is unheard of. But let's go ahead and listen to Francis Ngannou and Ariel Helwani break it down. Ariel Helwani, if you're not familiar.
Ooh, looks like Zach just up and dipped. What's up, everyone? It's the Vanguard. What's up, bro?
All right. Tried to hit present, and I hit the quick.
Zach got too excited.
So anyway, we'll pull this up. Ariel Helwani is probably the foremost MMA journalist. He's the only one that I take seriously, because he's actually banned from every UFC event. He's not allowed to be around Dana White. They kicked him off of ESPN because he's critical of Dana White, and Dana White is a fucking piss baby. He's like Donald Trump. Say anything nasty about him, they'll try and ruin your career. And so him and Ariel Helwani is a real journalist. He's not just a pushover. So he's like, but anyway, he's a true, like, authentic journalist. But anyway, he's talking to Francis Ngannou about how Francis quit the UFC because they were trying to only offer him money, and he had some other critical demands that he was making. And I want you to hear from this guy, because again, it's like, this guy has millions of dollars. He never has to think about money again. But this is still, across the board. If you are a worker, these things stay on your mind. So let's just take a little bit of this in, and then we can talk about it, because I think it'll really blow you guys away that even a heavyweight champion of the UFC still has these concerns after he's made millions of dollars.
Insane.
Like, what exactly are these things that he is referring to? Do you feel comfortable telling us what these things were, the sticking points, the true sticking points that you were fighting for that they didn't want to give up?
Well, it was a lot of them. Like, what I have learned is that you don't go in the table of a negotiation expecting to have everything that you want. But at least you want your partner, you want the other side to like show a willingness, or at least try, So I asked for a lot of things, which doesn't mean I was expecting all those things, but I was expect at least like a few or 1, 2 out of those things, First, I asked for a sponsorship, a right of a sponsorship, which we've been ripped off. We can have sponsorship. I have for health insurance, didn't have. I asked for a fighter advocate, somebody in the board meeting who will advocate for a fighter. I asked for that.
Okay, so let's just break down those first three things that he asked for. So for people to add a little context, right? So the UFC does this like shady business practice where like, yes, you're a contractor, right? But you're basically an employee. So they'll treat you like an independent contractor when it's convenient to them, and they'll treat you like an employee when it's convenient to them. So basically what they did was they're not paying them like employees. They're not giving them any health insurance. They're not giving them any direct HR. They're not giving them any kind of resources as fighters, but then simultaneously, as he mentions at the beginning, they're not allowed to use their own likeness. So he's not allowed to go out and get sponsorships with his own likeness as Francis Ngannou. He's not allowed to go sign with Nike. He's not allowed to go sign with Tidal. He's not allowed to go, which shit you see in all other sports. Like Gavin, you don't watch a ton of sports, but how much shit in Kansas City do you see Patrick Mahomes' face on? Right?
Ton,
right?
Yeah.
Tons. Because Patrick Mahomes the NFL, those players are allowed to use their own likeness, right? It's one of the key divisions between like NFL and NBA and college sports, right? And recently, I think college sports are allowing players to use more of their own likeness. Anyway, UFC, you can't fucking do that. And it costs the fighters massively. Okay. Everybody, for a while, it was Reebok. I don't know if it still is. They were trying to go with like uniforms in the ring. Anyway, instead of letting the guys like get all decked out in Monster and Tap Out and all the kind of shit that they used to do back in the day in the UFC. So they took that away from them. And he doesn't have health insurance. And think about what these guys are being asked to do with their bodies, man. They're going in there and going to fucking war with one another. They are going in there to hurt each other badly. And there's another, like, it's not just you going in there to hurt the other guy. That guy's going in there to hurt you. And he's there to hurt you bad. He's there to hurt you so bad that you cannot continue to fight and it's over. That's what they're asking them to do to each other. And then to not turn around and give them any kind of insurance for medical care is absolutely insane. And they're going to talk about it a little bit more because I just think this shows what kind of a stand-up guy Francis Ngannou is. This man walked away from millions of dollars, and anywhere else that he goes to do MMA, it'll always be looked at as it's not as good as the UFC.
Yeah.
And Dana White is spending, round the clock spinning it like, oh, he's too afraid to fight John Jones. Like, come on, fuck you. Francis Ngannou, look at this man. He's not afraid to fight anybody, okay? Like this dude, this is serious. Look at him. He's ginormous. He's jacked as all hell, and he can punch like nobody in history has ever been able to punch before. So anyway.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. You said that he might try to pursue boxing or maybe other forms of martial arts, but there's not really a big competitor to the UFC as far as MMA goes, correct?
There's two that a lot of people would mention. One FC is one championship that's based out of Singapore, I believe, and that's where guys like Mighty Mouse Johnson, Demetrius Johnson, he went over there. A couple of other guys have gone over there, but Mighty Mouse has had the most success. That's another one. And then Bellator is typically like, Bellator has some great fighters, but they also have some like lousier fighters. They don't have the prestige as the UFC does. So those would be the two biggest competitors. But if like you're probably thinking, I don't know who the fuck that is, and that's because most people who are outside of the sport don't know who that is.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm ignorant as to the world of MMA, but as far as I know, it's the UFC and the UFC alone. So that's interesting.
That's how they want to keep it too. And that's
Gotcha.
why Dana White's done every kind of shoddy business practice to keep it like that. So
interesting.
I couldn't have those stuff that I asked for, but I just wanted to know that there is something that I do want, and I also want them to take that at least in consideration,
Did they consider any of those things? Any of those kind of off the beaten path? None of them.
No.
Not a single one.
Oh, no. They say no. They don't do business like that. They say yes, I can pay my health insurance and all that. I'm like, yes, I can pay my health insurance. At this point, health insurance for me is not a problem, But how about those guys that still at the bottom make 10 plus 10 or lost a fight, make 10? They can really afford that health insurance, and I have been there, so it's something that still I still carry in my heart.
So listen to that guy, right? Listen to that guy. He's saying, no, this wasn't about me. Of course, I can pay my health insurance. I'm heavyweight champion of the fucking world. Okay, yeah, I have millions of dollars. And I pull quoted this on Twitter because I was like, it moved me. He's saying this at this point, it's not about him, right? And we don't have to listen to like much more of this. You guys kind of get the gist. Ariel Helwani goes on to confirm that he wasn't making these demands just for himself in his contract. He was asking for the entire UFC roster to have it, and he was like, yes, I'm asking for this. Was my demand for everybody because, like I said. And this is just massive solidarity. Like, look at this guy. We should all take our hats off to him. This guy walked away from his entire UFC contract extension while he was on top of the world, while he was the sitting fucking UFC heavyweight champion, the baddest man on the planet. Okay, he was about to fight John Jones in the biggest super fight ever. Okay, but he said no And if you go on, they ask him why, and they said, because they can't just throw money at me. He says, it's not about money. It's about freedom. It's about doing what I believe in. It's about taking care of these other people. And I'm like, bro, you should run. Like, this man needs to be like, I mean he's Cameroonian and French, so he's not running for office in America. But this guy needs to lead a union for fighters. This guy needs to get on the ground, because this is what the UFC always does. And he talks about it. And the way that he was so explicit about it, and could be because he's already fucking, done. He talks about, this is what they do in the UFC. One guy rises to the top and he starts to ask for shit for the other guys. They give him money, $10 million, $12 million. Shut the fuck up. You're rich now. You don't have any problems. You spent $12 million. No, you didn't. You go take care of your family, like, have a nice life right off into the sunset. And he was basically like, fuck your money. Like, I'm not signing another extension. The last extension, guys, that this guy signed, for anybody who follows MMA, he got his last deal when he fought Alistair fucking Overeem. Okay. And that was the fight where he like belts him in the face and drops the hammer fist, and it blew him up on the internet. And everybody was like, holy shit, who is this guy? That was when he did his last contract negotiation. This was his big payday. This was when he was supposed to come in and reap all of the rewards of being the champion. And he didn't get to do it. And he walked away from it all because he wanted to keep his integrity intact. I mean, almost nobody would be able to do that. And to come from nothing, literally fucking nothing. This man was digging sand when he was 10 years old. To go around and still say, no, you can't buy me. Nobody can fucking buy me. I mean, that's like a biblical fable right there. Like, that is something that you don't get to see very often.
Yeah, no, I think it's super impressive, super commendable, the guy. And I think what you said too about him advocating for the rights of the guys at the bottom is really important here. Again, the quote being, of course, I can pay for my own health insurance at this point. It's not a problem. But how about the guys at the bottom? They can't really afford that health insurance. And I've been there, which is something I still carry in my heart. That does show true solidarity, because so many athletes or celebrities or people who make it in general, once they get their shit, once they have their stuff taken care of, they just kind of forget about everyone else. And they're like, well, I worked hard for it, so you do the same. But the reality is, in a sport like the UFC, or really in any of these sports, whether it's football or in any of them, the vast majority, 99% of people don't make it to that level. And I think it's important for the guys that do make it to acknowledge that despite the fact that they worked hard and that their physical abilities and talents got them to the point that they are at, that doesn't mean that everyone else should just be left out and, denied healthcare and all that stuff. And it's insane that the UFC doesn't provide their fighters healthcare. I mean, that's crazy. Even if you just have a regular job, like a decent regular job, they usually, provide you health care benefits. So that's crazy that a sport that's as physically brutal and taxing as fighting, that's not part of the package.
Oh yeah, it's actually criminal. It's actually criminal, if you ask me. The fact that they exploit these fighters' bodies and they reap so much, and what the fuck are the fighters left with fucking hearing problems, CTE, their back hurts, they can't walk right. I mean, if you look at some of these early fighters, I mean, they don't look fucking good, man. Like the early UFC guys, the guys that like really started it all, they don't look so good now. They don't look so good now. And that's because this is a hard sport on your body. It's brutal. And some guys like Tony Ferguson, for example, one of the best lightweight fighters that's still like kind of around. Like, that dude is never going to be the same after the brutal fucking beatings that he took in this sport. And that's a more recent guy, but just a guy I've really like seen over the course of his career seemed like he's changed from how many fucking hits he took, like just really fucking changed. Anyway, that happens. And if you go back and you remember, a lot of people who don't know the structuring of how the sport works, is Francis is mentioning the guys who are on their first like early like up and coming, like I just got signed to the UFC. They're on what's called a 10 and 10 contract. So 10 grand for showing up, 10 grand for winning, which means you can go out there in a 3-round fight, get your leg broken and walk away with 10 grand. That's all the money you made. Also, you have to pay like 25% taxes on it. So you really made like $7,300. And then on top of that, you have to pay your trainer. You got to pay your gym. You got to pay on top of that. And then, also you might have some hospital bills now, and the UFC's fuck all. Like, yeah, sorry, bro. You wanted to fight. Like, we gave you your money. You're a contractor. You're not an employee. Right. But then you want to say, oh, well, okay, let me go ahead and use my likeness to sell some of these punching bags so I can fucking, pay my medical expense. Oh no, can't do that because you're a contracted employee for us, and we don't allow that with our contracted employees. Go fight somewhere else. And except you can't because we got you to a 5-fight deal and 1-year matching extension period. So it's so shady. It's so fucked. It's just like the record industry is with small time artists. So it's not about the big time guys, right? I know everybody's like, oh, cry a tear for a millionaire fucking sports athlete, right? But no, it's about the guys that you said, Gavin, the guys that aren't going to probably make it, the journeyman fighters, the guys that love it and dream about it and want to go for it and put their body to the test all the time, and they're getting paid 10 grand. You go, or even if you make 20 grand, again, that shit's going fast when you start really dwindling it down. And plus, that's your whole fucking salary for a year. Or what if you get 2 fights a year? Okay, 40 grand plus all the shit I told you had to pay for on top of putting your body through that. Like, that's like real working class, working poor money right there. That's the bulk of the UFC roster. And that's what Dana wants, is he wants a machine of people that he can exploit and then turn them into superstars whenever he decides. And then once he's made them a superstar, he'll pay them off. And if he can't pay them off, he'll discard them. And that's what we saw with Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. Do you have any insight into how this is all being received by people within the MMA community and the fan base? Like, are most people taking Ngannou's side on this?
So let me go ahead and pull up Twitter really quick. A lot of people are, yeah. So if you look at guys like Ariel Helwani, right, who I said before is like the biggest journalist in MMA. I mean, that guy is holding it down for Francis. He is fucking going after it.
Yeah.
And here's another clip of another guy that was defending Francis Ngannou that we can say this is going to give you a better insight of how the MMA community is reacting, because I think everybody is clear on the fact that that Francis is trying to, like, he's doing a real hard thing and he's sticking his neck out. So we can play this real quick.
Okay. But in September, Ngannou's, a lot of his thoughts and a lot of his talking points were fighters need this, fighters need that, sponsorship. And I got to be honest, even at the time and now, and I went, that's a non-starter for the UFC. Whenever you start going, fighters deserve, look, they'll give you a lot of money. They're not going to spread the wealth to every fighter on the roster and allow them to have sponsors because you want sponsors. That's a big sticking point. How much of a sticking point in your mind was that for Ngannou? Was kind of carrying the flag for the rest of the fighters?
I think it was huge. And, when I was in that meeting at that dinner with Hunter and Dana, we got back in the car, me and Francis. And look, man, the money that was being kicked around, Jimmy, you and I both would have been like, whoa, bro.
We would have been like, sure, I'll take an ass whooping for that. Yeah.
But this is why I love Francis. He looked over at me and he said, bro, if I sign this deal, I'm just another sellout. I didn't make any change. I didn't make any difference. Everything that I'm standing up for, and I talked about, now goes by the wayside. He goes, that doesn't make me any better than somebody else that's just selling out. He goes, I would rather take less money, and I would rather do the right thing for the people that are coming up. And I swear to God, that was the exact thing he said to me in the car on the way back. He just it's not about the money for me. Where I come from, where he's been, and what he's been through in his entire life, he's richer than any one of us, So I think it's all about perspective for him, and I feel like he can make a difference, and that was more important than him than the money.
So I don't know. It seems
based.
It seems like everybody knows that he's doing the right thing for the fighters, but it's also funny because the other side of the MMA community reaction was what this guy was talking about, which was Jimmy Smith, I think is that guy's name. Anyway, he was saying, oh, that was never going to happen. And that's why Francis laughed when Ariel asked if he fucking got any of these things. He was like, no, fuck no. But it was more important for him to say, I'm going to stand up for these things that I know you're not going to do because you're a bad person and an exploitative businessman and, a slimy fucking sleazeball, just like everybody else in the fucking fight promoting business. He was going to walk away from it all, and it is true. This guy, I mean, you almost can't imagine walking away from the money that guy walked away from when you came from fucking, I want to say this again, digging fucking sand in Cameroon. Like, none of us can imagine that lifestyle change. And then have 10, 20, potentially more than that, $20 million held over your head to be like, just shut the fuck up and do this fight. Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I looked up, I found an article of someone else saying that he was mishandling the UFC contract negotiation. Former champ says Francis Ngannou mishandled his dealings with the UFC. Like, it sounds like he was just standing up for his basic rights as a fighter and not letting the UFC totally fuck him over.
Yeah. So I will say, who was this fighter? Michael Bisping.
Bisping.
Oh, Michael Bisping, such a fucking homer. He gets his checks cashed by the UFC. This is what they do. So Dana White, like a lot of the guys that are really, but they have like their fucking cadre of dick suckers that come out there. Michael Bisping, I mean, badass fighter. He lost a fucking eye, still beat Luke Rockhold. I mean, you know, insane. But he's, you know how I told you that like when Ariel Helwani started to bust Dana White's balls years ago, he like got banned from fucking everything, and it ended up costing him his show on ESPN because Dana White wouldn't do a deal with ESPN if they gave fucking Ariel Helwani a show on the network at all. Like, this guy is so petty and vindictive. Anyway, so all the guys that are on like UFC, like they do, like Michael Bisping does a lot of the like color commentary, sort of like Rogan does, and that kind of stuff because he's a former fighter. He's good at it. But they all have to kiss Dana's ass and like that. Like, it was disgusting. A lot of them were coming out and like pretending like the media was smearing him when they were like criticizing him for like beating his wife, and like they were like, well, you know, this was just a dispute between like a married couple and it was nobody else's business, and like all kinds of shit. Like, imagine being such a bootlicking, cocksucking piece of shit. So. Yeah. That's those guys. I don't take those guys as criticism seriously. They're literally they're just henchmen for the boss. Like, they're getting paid by Dana White. Of course they're going to kiss his ass.
Yeah. Do you know if Rogan has weighed in at all yet?
I don't actually. I'll be interested to know because Rogan has always stayed so neutral when it comes to Dana. He always just pivots back to Dana's my friend. We've known each other for so long. I love Dana. Oh yeah, always buys me a steak when I see him. Like, fucking great guy. A gambling machine though. Fucking wild guy. Like, you know, that kind of shit. He never gets into the fucking like, oh yeah, he's a fucking abusive piece of shit, like exploitative businessman, like corrupt promoter, has ruined so many fighters' careers unfairly. Like,
yeah. Fuck Dana White. Everything I've heard about him makes him sound like a total piece of shit. Speaking of Joe Rogan, by the way, if we have time later in the show, I kind of wanted to react to this clip. He had Forrest Galante back on the show, and they're talking about this company trying to clone woolly mammoths and bring back like extinct animals. It's an interesting conversation that I think would make for a good discussion, but that just reminded me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We could definitely react to that. But we could also move on from the sports guard for now. I just thought that was a really interesting thing. I thought it had a nice connection to, you know, workers' rights, and just the fact that it's the best example of you rising to the top doesn't change anything for the system, right? It's about having solidarity all the way down, no matter what happens to you. So it's like, this guy worked his ass off, was ruthlessly competitive. I mean, you don't become UFC champion unless you are fucking just a grinding machine of fucking like physicality, and like you put yourself through the ringer and you train like nobody's business. And also, I mean, let's be honest, that dude was very genetically gifted. Like, I mean, you can't become a UFC fighter and just have any build off the street. I mean, he was tall and, you know, muscular and fast and
he looks
powerful.
like a beast.
Oh, dude, he's fucking crazy. I mean, he is the, epitome of what you would like the, if you look at him going like this or like picking something up, you're like, oh, I am so afraid of you. Imagine being locked in a fucking octagon with like, no, that dude's not afraid of anybody. That was why that was such a cheap, like lazy fucking comeback for the UFC. Right. Oh, he's too afraid to take his fight. Like, get away from me, please. He's going to fight a guy that used to fight at 205. Of course, he's not afraid of him. You know, the heavyweight fucking weight limit. You know what? Like, John Jones was the champion for the longest time at 205 pounds, right? Francis Ngannou can weigh in at 265 as a heavyweight. So it's just like that's a non-argument. There's no way. Plus, fuck John Jones too. He's a woman beater. He like was just a terrible fucking guy. He's gotten in so many like drunk driving accidents. He like hit a pregnant lady with his car and then fled the scene. This is the guy that This is the guy they chose over Francis. I mean, I can't fucking believe that shit. This is how nefarious the company is, because they wouldn't do the right thing. They were willing to give away what would have been like a huge thing for sport. Like, everybody wanted to see John Jones just get his fucking ass handed to him. And I would have loved to see it come from Francis Ngannou. I would have loved to see John Jones put flat on his fucking bat by Francis Ngannou, because John Jones is such a piece of shit and he's such an unlikable champion. Anyway.
Absolutely. And before we move on to the Jackson Hinkle, Ilhan Omar, Jimmy Dore brawl on Twitter. Sit tight, everyone. We're about to segue into that. Did get a few super chats. Shout out to you, Kevin. for the 199. Any rumors about the UFC unionizing? You know anything about that, Zach? I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, look, it would take so much. Like this could start the ripple effect that leads to something really important in the UFC that I would be so interested in covering as like a regular thing on our show, and I'll continue to fucking keep my ears to the ground. But what it would take it's really demoralizing for these up and coming fighters to try and say like, yeah, let's fucking stick our necks out and unionize when they just cut like one of the most famous guys, the heavyweight champ. I mean, a guy with insane name recognition, done the JRE circuit, right? Like, so I imagine that right now there's a little bit of cold water on a unionization effort because they just threw the fucking gauntlet down and went all like Ronald Reagan airline layoffs by, 86ing this guy being like, fine, you don't work here anymore. And they even, so they were really shady to Francis. And so I imagine a lot of the, up and coming fighters are nervous right now, but if anything does come about, I mean, I would love to cover it and I would love to see it emerge because I think that, sport is important and I think that we need a democratized workplace environment for all competitive sports. And I would love to see it start with the UFC because it's probably the worst and the most problematic.
Yeah. Hopefully Ngannou can, use some of this momentum, like you said, Zach, to get something like that going. Similarly to what we talked about, Jesse Ventura, what he tried to get started in the WWE.
Okay, that's actually a great point, Gavin, and I hadn't thought to mention that, but one of the highlights of my life, and I know Gavin's too, is when we went to go sit and just listen to Jesse Ventura tell us stories, and he's telling us about the night of like WrestleMania 2 or something like that. I think it's like WrestleMania 2 or 3, and he's like, he was supposed to fight like Jake the Snake or something like that, and then Hulk Hogan was fighting Andre the Giant. It was something like that. It was like a massive card. I can't remember who exactly was on it. But he's like, we don't need Hulk Hogan to unionize. We just need everybody else, right? And that's how we can flip the script on Vince McMahon, who was basically the guy that Dana White took his fucking playbook from and what he did with WWE. And now Vince McMahon is a horrid piece of shit. You might have seen him in the news recently because he is selling WWE to like fucking Saudi Arabians with a bunch of blood money. Not that all American money is blood money too, but I mean, Jesus Christ, imagine being like, oh shit, I want to sell it to like the Saudis that just fucking killed Jamal Khashoggi.
They're also buying up the PGA.
Yeah, I heard about that too. Kyle covers that pretty well because he gets really angry when there's like a lot of Saudi money in golf, and he'll be like, "Damn it, why are you doing this?" He'll be like,
Yeah, that's crazy. Anyway, shout out to you, Kevin. Really appreciate the 199, and shout out to you, Mike, #1 fan of the Sports Guard. Trevor Lawrence versus Patrick Mahomes. Who's Trevor Lawrence? Is he another QB?
Yeah, he's the guy with the real long blonde hair. He where did he was he like Georgia? Was it Georgia or LSU where he played college ball? I don't really watch a lot of college ball. Anyway, he's a big college ball quarterback. And he had a rough start to the season, but he kind of got it together. And he's playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who the Chiefs play on Saturday. And I'm so fucking pissed off. Why do we have a 3:30 game on Saturday? I have to work on Saturday. I don't work on Sundays. You give us a Sunday football game. Football games are for fucking Sunday. I never, ever, ever am at the bar on Sunday. Never. We don't even have a Sunday liquor license because we don't have a TV, and that is basically suicide because if the Chiefs games are on Sunday, like nobody will come to your bar, right? It makes sense. But I don't want to be at that fucking bar if there's no TV on there. So what I have to do is I have to take the fucking register and I have to fucking plug my phone into it, and then I can play the game from the It's a fucking mess, and then, whatever, don't get to really enjoy it. But shout out to you, Mike. I hope you get to watch the game.
Yeah, I'll definitely be keeping track of the score on Google like I tend to do, unless I'm watching the game with Zach. But yeah, shout out to you, Mike. Really appreciate that. Let us know in the chat also who you think will emerge victorious in that match. And sit tight, everyone. We're about to move on to the main story for today. Just a couple more super chats. Shout out to you, Mason, for the $2. What's your thoughts on cybernetic socialism? That sounds like a video game. To be honest, I have no idea what that is. I looked it up and that didn't really help. So feel free to provide some insight in chat. Mason, like I said, I just Googled it and what came up was Project Cybercian, Chilean project from 1971 to 1973 during the president of Salvador Allende, aimed at constructing a distributed decision support system to aid the management of the national economy, which just sounds kind of like gobbledygook to me. So I don't really know what the specifics are of this. I'd have to do some more research. But yeah, feel free to provide some more insight in the chat, Mason. Unfortunately, I'm totally ignorant to the ins and outs of cybernetic socialism.
It's Philistine over here considers himself a real socialist. No, all I know about that is that as soon as Gavin pulled it up, I recognized the name Allende, and I was like, well, Allende was a base fucking socialist that the United States definitely
He was
played a role.
assassinated, right?
Yeah, dude, and that's how they got Pinochet in Chile. So whatever he was up to before, I imagine it was pretty based, but I don't have any direct thoughts on it. I mean, usually that's why they whack you. It's like you were costing the United States too much money by keeping it for your own fucking civilian population.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. And also, shout out to you, Mike. That's hilarious. Trevor Lawrence looks like a taller Gavin. I looked him up, and I actually was like, that guy kind of looks like me if I was like a Chad football player. Definitely a similar hairstyle going on. That's pretty funny, Mike.
Yeah, that's actually so true. And I mean, Gavin's decently tall. You're like what, 6'1", 6'2"?
I think I'm like 6'2", yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Trevor Lawrence is like only 3 or 4 inches taller than Gavin, or unless maybe he's 6'7". He's probably tall. Oh, he played for Clemson. Okay, gotcha. That's where he played college ball. That makes sense. Okay. That's why it's one of the fucking few college football players I recognize, because I only ever see like the championship games for college football. Because I mean, I didn't go to KU, but that's most of what's on and where we live, and KU fucking is terrible at football. So anyway, but yeah, he does kind of look like a taller Gavin. That's very, very funny.
Shout out to you, Mike. Really appreciate it. Like I said, #1 fan of the Sports Guard. And hope you guys enjoyed that segment. I know that not all of you guys care as much about sports, but that was a really interesting discussion, in my opinion. And shout out to Francis Ngannou for sticking it to the man and standing up to that piece of shit, Dana White, hoping that he, is able to remain just as successful and, maybe get a good boxing match or something like that going.
Yeah, I mean, one time I heard that it was rumored that he was going to fight like Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury or something, which is just like throwing yourself into the fucking shark end. Tyson Fury, I think, is maybe one of the greatest fucking heavyweights ever. I mean, the guy moves so smooth he moves around like he's a fucking lightweight. I swear to God, I know that's used. He's like a featherweight in there, but he moves so fast. He's like 7 feet tall. But so I would be more interested.
Crazy.
I would be more interested in seeing Francis fight Deontay Wilder. One, because I like watching Deontay Wilder fight. Normally I cheer for him because he's an American and Tyson Fury isn't, but he's also just a less technically sound boxer. He relies so much on his knockout power, which is insane and almost always works. It's worked against literally everybody besides Tyson Fury. But I just think that Tyson Fury can outbox any heavyweight in the world right now in boxing. And because Francis Ngannou has been trained in mostly MMA, his boxing's not going to be as fluid. It's not going to be as loose. It's not going to be as clean. So it wouldn't be as exciting of a matchup, because I know that Tyson Fury would just, basically go full technician and just like pick him apart, and then in like rounds 10 really start to lay the fucking shit on him. So anyway, a fight against Deontay Wilder, because they both are known for just having insane knockout power, would be way more interesting for me, and would make them both like fucking millions and millions of dollars.
He should fight Logan Paul, bro. Or is that the one that does boxing, or do they both do boxing?
Both do boxing, but
okay.
that would never happen because Francis is ginormous. Like people don't realize, like this dude cuts down to 265. You have to be a big man to be that jacked, running miles a day, and then still cut weight to 265. I mean, Jesus.
Interesting. Also, shout out to you, Kelly. Really appreciate the $9.99 following up on the cyber socialism question. There's a lot to take in when you research cyber. Seeing Allende would have changed mankind if that system was allowed to grow. Makes Chile all the more tragic. Couple of people you could interview. Interesting. Well, feel free to forward us on Twitter some of those individuals, because that does sound quite intriguing. And I would definitely be interested in learning more. So thank you, Kelly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the U.S. involvement in the fucking just horrid things that we did in Central and South America for much of the second half, actually all of the second half of the 20th century, is something that's like such a grimacing and vile stain on this country that I feel like we try and acknowledge, but I'm admittedly not as well versed in it as I should be. So yeah, I would love to learn more about Allende, learn more about cyber socialism, and I would like to learn more about what exactly it was that you think would have changed the world. But obviously what happened to Chile was horribly tragic, and the fact that they had the brutality of the Pinochet regime with aid and abetting of the United States alphabet agencies is fucking horrible.
Absolutely correct. Thank you so much, Kelly, for the generous super chat. We really appreciate that. And before we segue into the main topic of today's live stream, everyone make sure to hit that like button. We'd really appreciate it, guys. We got 224 comrades watching right now. If all of you could hit that like button, that would be greatly appreciated. Get some more eyes on the stream, get some more comrades in the chat, because this is going to be a spicy discussion. Also, a reminder, I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, but a reminder to stick around till the end of the show because we do have an exciting announcement to make. So without further ado, I guess we can get started on this Twitter beef that got quite ugly. I will say so myself. Pretty unfortunate. So are you ready, Zach?
Yeah, dude, I saw this last night and I was like, oh, fuck me, man. This is getting crazy. Because at first I saw it and I was like, okay. I was like, this is weird. Like, why is she engaging with Jackson? And then I was like, Jackson got exactly what he wanted.
Yeah. Pretty disgusting stuff here. Let's take a look at this tweet from Ilhan Omar. She posted this yesterday on Twitter. Images like this, along with rhetoric from the likes of Lauren Boebert, constantly make the rounds in GOP circles, and regardless of how many death threats they generate, will never get condemnation from GOP leadership. Their opposition to me has always been about Islamophobia. And then she posts a screenshot of this tweet saying, breaking, Representative Ilhan Omar has confirmed she's still considering how to respond to Kevin McCarthy removing her from House committee position, and posts this pretty disgustingly Islamophobic image of her in front of an ISIS flag saying, I might do some things. Again, just straight up racist. No denying that. And, we have been fairly critical of Ilhan Omar, along with many other of the progressives in the House of Representatives, for what we see as a lack of true opposition or resistance to the corporate order of the Democratic Party leadership and the likes of Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries. Obviously, there's many valid criticisms of Omar and crew, many of which we've made on the show. So, just to get that out of the way, obviously, Ilhan Omar is not someone that we hold up here as a hero or someone that we think is above criticism, not even close. That being said, she is 100% correct to point out the fact that a lot of the criticism that comes at her from the right wing, including from people like Lauren Boebert and this clown dissocial space, is 100% rooted in Islamophobia. It's not substantive criticisms of her lack of resistance to Nancy Pelosi, like the ones we make here on the Vanguard. Obviously, these criticisms are not substantive. They are purely racist. And like I said, she's 100% correct to point that out. Before we get into Jackson Hinkle's response to this, what was your reaction, Zach?
I mean, look, it's not that hard to take a look at something like this and be like, holy shit, this is coming from like people who are horrible bad faith actors that probably wish harm to Ilhan Omar. And like Gavin and I are pearl clutchers. We say whatever the fuck we want to on this podcast, but there are lines you don't cross if you don't want to be like explicit in the fact that you were like now aligning yourself with radicals that honestly want to harm Ilhan Omar, right? Like this is a woman that has to deal with death threats. This is a woman that has to deal. And it's like, oh, well, she signed up for that to be a fucking congresswoman. Yeah, well, she didn't sign up to have you fucking echo this shit like a mad, like, and crazy person, right? Like comparing her directly to fucking Al Qaeda and like the fucking terrorist groups that we have spent years battling as a country, like essentially like calling her un-American, like a terrorist. This is the kind of thing that they're trying to do. And with all of the fucking deranged white supremacists that are coming out here as shooting things up, it's just massively irresponsible. It's dangerous, and it's just fucking racist and wrong and every other odious, like vile. What kind of synonyms do I have to come up with to make it clear to people that this is indefensible type of shit? This is not how you make a political argument, okay? This is not what you do. I don't fucking put pictures of Ted Cruz dressed up like he's a member of the Third Reich, and then like I mean maybe that would be kind of funny because of some of the policies that he's addressed, but yeah, you know what I mean. I don't know. It's just with this specific hot button issue and the fact that she is a fucking refugee from Somalia, and that is a country that has been devastated by the quote unquote war on terror. Like to try and align her with it is really fucked up. It's a new low. And a better example would probably be, I wouldn't take like X, Y, or Z famous, like, Jewish person or person of like Jewish culture and dress them up as like fucking Hitler or something like that. That would be like, probably a better analogy here. It's just something like unthinkably fucking awful to do.
100% correct. 100% correct. But that being said, despite the fact that we felt that was a common sense thing to point out on Ilhan Omar's behalf, apparently Jackson Hinkle felt otherwise. He said, "You support Al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria against the Assad government. I don't think the meme is out of line." To which Ilhan Omar and most other people observing said, "What the fuck are you talking about?" What the fuck are you talking about? Ilhan Omar, to my knowledge, and clearly to her knowledge as well, has never voiced any support for fucking Al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria. What was your reaction to this, Zach?
I just it's one of those things where he's like really trying to stretch so that he can like signal to his audience. I mean, one, it's just so obvious that she doesn't support Al-Qaeda terrorists, right? Like, I mean, it's almost hard to respond to that. But I already could tell as soon as I saw this that I was going to hear some like wonky, like fucking crazy backwards, like she voted for this and she knew this person that chewed bubblegum next to that person that funneled money from here. And then that was whitewashed and turned back. And see, isn't the squad the biggest problem for American politics? They're a danger. And it's just like, obviously, this is what you're doing. You're targeting the most vulnerable people on the Democratic Party, the progressives, the squad. You're trying to make them look uniquely culpable for something that they are not uniquely culpable. And even if I do disagree, like what we should be talking about right now is the fact that Ilhan actually had a really shitty vote on China earlier this week, and that's something that you can fairly criticize her for, and I will happily do so at a later time. But this shit right here, oh, she supports Al-Qaeda. Why? Because she's from Somalia, Jackson. Because all of your fucking new followers now just want you to do dog whistle racism and attack the brown lady in Congress. That's exactly what the fuck is happening right here, and it's obscene. And we already know Jackson doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about when it comes to anything. So he's clearly just looking for brownie points with his audience. And it's deranged now. Now we've reached the point where I'm like, this is fucking deranged, but it gets way more deranged.
Oh, it gets way worse. This is nothing in comparison to what we're about to show you guys. Like you said, Zach, this is just straight up indefensible, straight up disgusting. So Jackson responded to her tweet saying, "What the fuck are you talking about?" He says, "Remember this? You supported terrorists like Jaish al-Islam, HTS, al-Nusra, and al-Qaeda in their bloody campaigns against the Syrian people and government. 88.7% of Syrians voted for Assad in 2014, with observers from 30 countries. Assad is Syria's democratic leader." And to prove this point that she supports the following terrorists mentioned, he screenshots this tweet and posts it. "The people of Syria revolted against Assad's repressive dictatorship 8 years ago today, demanding a more just and free government. Peace-loving people around the world stand in solidarity with them in this struggle." And Ilhan Omar has been a consistent critic of U.S. involvement and intervention in Syria. In no way was she attempting to manufacture consent for U.S. involvement in Syria. In fact, Ilhan Omar, despite her faults, has been one of the better Congress members on the left in regards to foreign policy and U.S. intervention at large. Again, not above criticism by any means. There are definitely some issues where I disagree with Ilhan Omar and her voting record, notably Ukraine. That being said,
or China,
it's not to point out that, like, some people in Syria are dissatisfied with the direction that Assad is taking the country, or to criticize Assad is not the same thing as supporting terrorism, is not the same thing as aligning yourself with the likes of Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra. That shouldn't have to be said. But again, just because you are critical of a dictator or even a non-dictator, a leader of some government anywhere around the world, does not mean that you support terrorist regimes in said country.
It's just crazy. Like, anytime you say that somebody like, oh, something bad about like X, Y, or Z leader, like it's the same kind of shit where I could say, oh, yeah, Kim Jong-un is a bad guy. I think he's a bad person. Solidarity to all of the people of North Korea. you know, whatever. I would make that as a statement, no problem. But then a tanky would come out of nowhere and be like, the People's Democratic Republic of Korea voted with 99% to re-elect the Democratic leader, Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un, a very humble man of humble origin. He led them away from the imperialist United States, and that is why we have... Okay, yes, we hate North Korea because we can't control them. That is totally true. They spend all of their money on nuclear weapons because they're scared shitless we're going to invade them. A lot of that's true. But their guy in charge, ruthless fucking dictator, raper, all kinds of bad things that you would be if you were king. That's also true, right? And so it's kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. People voted for fucking Bashar al-Assad. People voted for Joe Biden. I don't see you fucking melting down when people protest in the streets. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, I could call that guy a dictator. I could call him a fucking piece of shit because I mean, do you really think they had free and fair elections in war-torn Syria? Like, I don't know. That's a fucking stretch to me. Maybe they did. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? Oh, miraculously, this guy that's been ruthlessly ruling this country just won with overwhelming support. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm always skeptical of that, right? And anyway, and also it does not at all implicate what he alleges it does, which is why, you know, he has no actual there. It's just him virtue signaling to his fucking deranged audience because he's trying to connect dots that aren't there to be connected just so that he can move his point, right? He's changing the goalposts, redefining what she said, putting words in her mouth to make her look terrible because that's what his audience has already projected onto her.
Correct. Jackson followed up that statement with, Ilhan followed up that tweet with one of her own, where she says, where in that tweet does it say that I support any of the groups that you just mentioned? You seem delusional and are clearly desperate to create connections between me and terrorism, which is repulsive and terrifying. And again, it's perfectly valid to critique Ilhan Omar's foreign policy or her politics in general. We've done so on the Vanguard multiple times. But I do think she's correct to point out that, you know, it is pretty delusional, desperate, and repulsive to, you know, take this statement and somehow act like she's a terrorist or that she's a terrorist sympathizer because of that. I think her tweet would most charitably be interpreted as, hey, the people of Syria, you know, were not happy with Assad and they, you know, protested his dictatorship. I don't think that in any way she was signaling support for Al-Qaeda. And obviously, you know, Jackson Hinkle, like you said, Zach, is just pandering to his fascistic right-wing audience with blatant Islamophobia and by invoking just straight up racist attacks that are commonplace among the GOP on Congresswoman Omar because of her Muslim faith.
And refugee status, I think, is another big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So she says that and then follows up with saying, I know I shouldn't engage people like him, but these kind of allegations need some pushback. That's all. And yeah, probably correct. Probably shouldn't engage with people like him. Very, very much so the definition of a bad faith actor. And again, you know, I don't have any problem with criticizing Ilhan Omar's foreign policy. If you wanted to say, you know, actually Assad was awesome and I think that he's not a dictator, that's fine. You know, whatever. It's a disagreement. You don't need to invoke Islamophobia and call someone a terrorist or a terrorist sympathizer because they see a foreign policy situation differently than you. It's pretty crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's also just, I mean, if he had the nuts and bolts, he would have revealed them, right? But he doesn't. So he pulls up a miscellaneous tweet from fucking years ago where she like vaguely signals to the Syrian people that are fucking standing up to Bashar al-Assad that she supports them. Like, I don't know. And I did see people say like, you know, Ben Norton, you know, asserted the accuracy of the fucking like, or like really like, you know, went to bat and said like, hey, Syria did have like, you know, at least as fair elections as us. Like I said, my Westernism, whatever it is, you call it that. I'm saying that in the midst of a war-torn fucking civil war country, like I just don't know if that's true. I would need to see that data. I would love to read Ben Norton's reporting on that. Maybe he would convince me. But I'm a little skeptical of that. That being said, even if they did have free and fair elections, still think you can, you know, as a congressperson, you're allowed to support people who are protesting fucking anywhere, you know? Anyway.
Yeah. And also 88%, come on. 88%. I struggle to believe that that's a fair election. I'm no expert, but Come on.
Never seen an 88%. I've looked at a lot of elections, okay? I've looked at some landslides. The Obama election, first time round, was a fucking landslide, okay? But yeah.
Yeah,
Not even close to
hard
88%. I was like, I mean, we're talking about like 3 or 4 percentage points will turn something into a landslide, not 20 or 25.
Right. It's like when Russia did the fake elections around the various provinces of Ukraine, where it was like 95% of the people want to join Russia. It's like, yeah, I'm sure that was an accurate
NATO apologist.
percentage.
You fucking disgust me, Gavin.
Also, shout out to you, Michael. Really appreciate the $5. Criticizing Ilhan Omar on said issue is fine, but threatening to deport Muslims and smearing them as terrorists is downright dangerous and grotesque. 100% correct, Michael. 100% correct. Yeah, I don't think Ilhan Omar is in any way above criticism. We've criticized her and her fellow progressives in Congress on multiple occasions. In no way are we simping for squad members or Ilhan or anything like that. But that being said, this is just a grotesque smear.
Yep, and it only gets worse. Sorry, I'm looking. There are so many tweets for us to find. I'm like trying to get them all queued up and like make sure I'm like not missing out on any of the ones that are going in there, because like, yeah, this is insane. And Jackson Hinkle really probably shouldn't be dealt with in good faith, as she says. But I also think that it's important for fucking muckrakers like us on the internet to just point out how insane he is.
Oh yeah, it is. It's all yeah. Part of me doesn't want to give him attention, but at this point, he's a little bit too big to ignore, unfortunately. So, shout out to you, Michael, and I think you follow up with a good point as well. O.J. Simpson, bad guy, but that doesn't give you the excuse to call him the N-word or say he should be lynched. Hinkle crosses a line here. I think that's a pretty accurate analogy, Michael. I think that's 100% correct, and I wouldn't even say that Ilhan Omar is in any way comparable to someone as evil as O.J. Simpson. But yeah, I think the analogy still stands, and we're about to see more of Hinkle's disgusting commentary, which goes even further and absolutely does cross the line, as you said, Michael.
Oh yeah, and also it just shows what's in somebody's heart, right? Like it just shows who you are as a person, right? Like, oh, like you're getting into some sort of a debate or a conflict with somebody who, you know, is of a different race or religion or background or fucking country with you, and you immediately just go to slander and attack them based off of like fucking where they came from or the color of their skin. Like that shows more about you. That shows what's in your heart, right? Like, because I mean, you can criticize somebody all day long, all goddamn day, right? You know, and it never bring it there, because why would you bring it there, right? Like all that shit's irrelevant, but it shows what's in his heart, and it shows who he's trying to attract is the people who do want to see him slander for that. And this shit, I sent this to Gavin. I was like, I saw this, and I was like, oh fuck, this guy is like, good riddance to you, dude. I hope like you'll never get to Congress. If you get to Congress, boy howdy, will that be a hard day for me. Selfishly, it'll be a hard day for everyone.
And yeah, Jackson says, Ilhan Omar, when I join Congress, I will immediately introduce a House motion to have you extradited to Syria over charges of terrorism. Just straight up unhinged. Again, completely unsubstantive. And as Know Nothing points out in the comments, quote, when I joined Congress, bitch, you couldn't even win your local race for city council. Good luck getting into Congress, bro.
Dude, he kind of reminds me of like, you know, what I imagine like his town has a similar relationship to Jackson as like Kansas City has to a guy like Justice Horn, you know, who's just like fucking just desperate to be on the fucking city council, but like can't pull it together. And then if you even pull up that picture from the Know Nothing tweet of that article about it, like photos of Sam Clemente city council candidate in firefighter gear brings sheriff's investigation. He like goes on to delete these images from his Instagram because he just goes out and takes a picture in a bunch of fireman gear, and they're like, "You're not a fireman. You can't fucking do that." He just goes and put it on.
Was he trying to pretend that he was?
Well,
a
if you look at the little thingy over there, it says he went and proceeded to delete them from his fucking Instagram account. So he was just like I think what he was probably trying to do was like suggest that he had the support of the firemen. Yeah. And then, like, he really maybe just had one guy that was like, here, take a picture of my shit. And they were like, hey, man, you can't fucking do that. There are rules in elections. But it fucking hilarious because he was running as like a Bernie guy, like a Bernie kid. And now all of his politics have changed. Right. This is something that like a deranged person like Steve Bannon would say.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the thing. If you guys are just tuning into this scene and maybe you weren't familiar with the evolution of Jackson Hinkle, like literally like a year and a half ago, maybe less, Hinkle was like on the same side of things as we were. Like he was always cringy, you know, he was kind of just like the sexist version of the Vanguard. You know what I'm saying? Like basically the same politics as us, just like with a tinge of misogyny and like frat boy energy. But when it came to the actual policies, he was basically a Bernie bro, right? He was basically a solid progressive, Medicare for all. He seemed to care about the issues. He would have on, you know, interesting people on his show to discuss. He was you know, for the most part, it seemed like a decent, you know, commentator, a real progressive. And then when he realized where the money was at on the right wing, he, you know, immediately pivoted and just started leaning into the most disgusting possible talking points and, you know, just regurgitating the most disgusting possible support for people like Andrew Tate, Kanye West, Jordan Peterson, just the most vile actors, Tucker Carlson. And also, you know, just regurgitating absolute undeniable bigotry about the transgender community, and so on and so forth. Again, just clearly and disgustingly pandering to the most fascistic elements of the right wing in order to grow his following, because he saw that that's where there was a following to be grown. So totally disgusting. And for someone who at one point at least claimed to be anti-capitalist, it doesn't get more capitalist. It doesn't get more capitalist than this guy's career trajectory. Again, he saw where the money was to be made and he flushed all of his values and ethics down the toilet immediately in exchange for some money.
Oh, yeah. And before we get down to the sanctioned Greta Thunberg and not Putin, if you go back up, he posts the most boomer shit ever. Keep going up. It's like, if the Kardashians can get 100,000 likes, can this hardworking American family? And then that's where that's when you know every single right here. This image right here, which definitely came from Facebook, maybe like circa 2009. Okay. This is who his audience is. The people who still consume this shit. Okay. The people who still go on Facebook, for one. So you're mostly dealing with like the geriatric ward at hospitals and like old folks' homes, right? I mean, Jesus Christ. This is who his bread and butter is. This is who he's like featuring to now. For the most part, it's just boomers who are like, oh, men aren't tough enough anymore. Like, it's not the way it was when I was a boy. Like, you know, you're all snowflakes.
The fuck does this even mean, by the
Who
way?
cares?
Right?
Who cares? That's irrelevant. Like,
maybe that's a good reason to stop demonizing them and going after them. It's a tiny faction of the population. Why are you so concerned about trans people, bro? It's pretty disgusting. Posting shit like this, girl bosses are not wife material, as if being a professional woman with a career is somehow bad or, you know, contradictory with being a partner. Like, it's crazy. They're teaching the youth CRT, feminism, sexual kinks. What? Where the fuck is that even happening, bro? Trans ideology, anti-Americanism. And again, this is like someone who like 6 months ago was talking about how bad America was and how necessary communism was and all the horrible things that America's done around the globe. But all of a sudden now he's like, anti-Americanism is what they're teaching the youth. Just the most blatant pivot of all time. If you actually believe this guy and think he's acting in good faith, then I got a bridge to sell you. But yeah, look at this shit. Just what they should be teaching. Weightlifting, survival skills. This is like a fucking... This dude grew up in like Orange County, super bougie, rich family. Survival skills. Give me a fucking break.
Also, I got to show you one of, if we can pull this up really quick, one of his other own goals. So he's like, as a congresswoman, you should engage with critics like me. The people you shouldn't engage with are the Azov Nazis in Ukraine that you are funneling tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money to, right? Which is funny because my favorite commentator and the guy that's never wrong about what's going on in Ukraine, he told me, oh shit, this is the wrong tweet. Fuck. Hold on. I got to pull it up.
Also, yes, Devontae, I am 6'2", but no need to be scared. I'm not very intimidating, I promise, despite my stature.
Hold on 1 second. It's being
not the most physically impressive specimen out there. Maybe I need to hit the weightlifting and survival skills.
There we go.
But shout out to you, Devontae. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, shout out to you. It makes up for the fact that I'm only like 5'9" with my shoes on. But Jackson over here told us that the Azov battalion was erased from the face of the earth.
Oh yeah, what the hell?
How is she funneling them tens of millions of dollars, Jackson? Months ago, Putin was so base that he led a very successful base mission, owned all of the triggered lives and exterminated the Azov battalion. But you can't market that. that runs out. Oh wait, he destroyed him. No, I think he found like more Nazis in Ukraine, bro. I think that's where we're sending our money to, bro. That shit. They came back, bro. Too many Nazis, bro. Too many Nazis. Like, okay, was the Azov battalion full of fucking horseshit Nazis? Absolutely. Okay,
Yes,
that's
it was.
documented truth, right? But the obsession that, you know, it's like one of those things. It's like, why are all the people who love American Nazis so afraid of the fucking Ukrainian Nazis? It's because their big daddy is Putin, right? And so
Yep.
that's who they make content to satisfy for some reason. I don't know. Nothing's documented, right? So it gives them the like fucking excuse to be, I'm a completely independent, right? We don't know where all of that fucking funding is coming from. Jackson Hinkle doesn't put up a list of every single person that supports him on Patreon, right? So we don't know why you would be so obsessed with Putin for free. But hey, I'm not making any accusations. I'm just speculating. Now, why for free would you get so
It is
obsessed with
sketchy.
Putin?
It is sketchy. And especially for someone who claims to be anti-war, you can't be out here defending Vladimir Putin, who's currently waging the biggest war ongoing. Anyway, here's another cringy post from Jackson. This one was pretty funny because he posted this cringy ass boomer meme. And this guy, Brandon Hunt, responds and says, "Neither of them will fuck you, bud," which is a good response. He ratioed the living shit out of Jackson, by the way. To which Jackson thought it was wise to reply, "This you?" And then post this. You might think this. Oh, he's gonna post something really embarrassing. He says, "This you?" Let's take a look. Which is like, is that supposed to be embarrassing, bro? Is that supposed to be fucking embarrassing, bro? Someone says, "This you," and proceeds to post the hardest video sound talent we've seen in a very long time. High five for that, you medium well pancake. Which is true. That was hard as fuck. Like, that was way more badass than anything Jackson Hinkle would ever shit out of his fucking disgusting mouth.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, and also it's like that dude's music. That dude's playing shows. That guy's seeing an ROI from his music. That's a well shot music video. That they've got choreography and shit. Like, these guys know what they're doing. I imagine that they're signed to some label, like a Sumerian type of a hardcore or like metalcore kind of a label. I don't know what the fuck kind of music they normally play, and there's too many fucking subgenres to ever get them correct. But anyway, yeah. Exactly. Like, how is that an own? Like, you have to be signaling to like the most boomer fucking people that are like, that's Satan's music kind of shit. It's just like,
yeah.
Thanks for
Like,
sharing.
no, that was actually badass, bro. That was hard as fuck. Imagine posting that thinking it's some sort of like epic burn. Like, that was literally fucking badass. I want to go listen to this music now. I want to go find out more about Brandon Hunt and his fucking badass band. Anyway, just some straight up cringe from Jackson, and we're not quite done yet. But shout out to you, Christopher Loud. Really appreciate the generous $30 super chat. Love you guys stuck in traffic. Hoping you guys will use some of the super chat to buy Jason Hinkle some height pills to quell his runaway insecurity. Yeah, I think he is a bit of a short man himself. That is funny though. Thank you so much, Christopher.
Watch it, Gavin. Okay, Mr. 6'2" over here. Yeah, I can dunk a basketball. Get the fuck away. No, I'm kidding. Shout out to you, Christopher Loudon. Yeah, look, man. We're gonna talk a little bit about what may have been part of the real catalyst for this transformation of Jackson Hinkle. And you have to remember, guys, he's a young guy. Maybe he'll bounce back. He's really gonna make it hard for himself the more he digs this fucking hole for him. Maybe he'll find his way back. But he is still a young and impressionable guy. I think he's a couple years younger than me and Gavin. I think he's like 22 or something. He looks like he's 100, but that's fucking another story. Is it that he's put in a hard 22 years. I don't know what the fuck he's been doing.
Yeah, the Charlie Kirk effect. The Charlie Kirk effect is definitely going strong over there. But shout out for you, Christopher. Really appreciate that generous super chat. Hopefully the traffic, hopefully you're not stuck in traffic for much longer. And also shout out to you, Hysteric Raider, for the $2. This is a point that I was making from the very beginning. Wow, from communism to MAGA communism to playing MAGA. Yeah, when Jackson started the whole MAGA communist movement, one of the first things I said was, like, fucking mark my words, in a matter of months, he will drop the communism altogether and it will just be the MAGA. And that has absolutely happened. If you look on his Twitter these days, you barely, if ever, see him talking about communism. He's basically just your average right-wing chud, like Jordan Peterson. He's like Jordan Peterson if Jordan Peterson was just like a Putin propagandist.
Yep, absolutely. And it's just so weird that emerged as a lane where there were so many people that just wanted to go see like Putin be based and like Putin, oh yeah, he's just taking over this other. Okay, that's such a weird part of the internet. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I just don't get it, really. I don't see the appeal. Like, I understand the appeal of like, America's the best country in the world, god damn it, woo! Like that kind of content I totally get. But the whole like Putin sympathizer thing, I don't understand.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. And again, Hinkle went on to create this Twitter space. Ilhan Omar is a terrorist sympathizer, which a cadre of just vile scum showed up to participate in. Samira Khan, total clown. Haas, total clown. And Jimmy Dore, who for some reason continues to associate with this disgusting bigot. You know, we've given Jimmy Dore credit where it's due in the past. Obviously, you guys know that. He was right about Force the Vote. He's right about some stuff. But the fact that he continues to associate with this just blatant transphobe, this blatant misogynist, this fucking freak, this beta incel freak, it's blowing my mind.
Oh yeah, dude, and not only that, publicly getting in on the tweets that he'd made to like challenge Ilhan Omar, like, yeah, I want to be standing side by side with this racist or a guy whose entire audience is racist and he doesn't give a shit, which I would then use as my argument that you could also be described as a racist. You are utilizing white supremacy for your own fucking disgusting benefit. And Jimmy Dore is just happy to sign off on it because why? Because he knows that's what his audience believes too. That's the audience that he's cultivated for himself now. A bunch of people who think that Ilhan Omar, because she's a Somali refugee, right? She's a fucking terrorist sympathizer. And even if Jimmy is going to like beat around the bush and say that he was talking about like specific money that she voted for that went to the Azov battalion, which, you know, like we said, for a while, they were telling us the Azov battalion has been erased from the face of the earth. Putin, WL, Ukraine. All those content video, you guys remember they were coming out for a while and we were like, oh, okay, well, you can't milk the cow anymore if they're gone. So you had to bring them back, right? It's like a bad sequel. Anyway, he's gone out of his way to just stick his neck out and be with the scum, the absolute worst elements of Twitter. Like the fucking, you know, if Twitter was a laundry machine, they would be the fucking disgusting shit that you had to peel off so it didn't get on your clothes and you fucking threw it away before you could properly use the washing machine. Like it just the sludge,
it's a cesspool.
Yeah, they're not even words for it. Like Samir Khan blew up in like regular people Twitter, right? For being just so disgusting and like hateful towards like a fat woman that was just living her life. Like, Could you imagine wanting to be associated with that person? Like literally just taking this woman, minding her own business, living her whole life, just like going out on a fucking town and dressed nicely. But like Samir Khan thinks she's too fat. So she's like, this fucking fat thing has gone too far. It's just like, what are you talking about? This woman's just out looking good, living her best life. I'm sorry you think that she's like too heavy. What the fuck is the matter with you? Like, these are the kind of people that Jimmy has, you know, surrounded himself with. And, you know, there's an old cliche that they used to say all the time where they would say that you are the mean of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Jimmy's got 5 fucking friends in this chat room before, and I think it's fair to say that he's the mean of the people that are in here.
Yeah, these people say out loud what Jimmy's too afraid to say. That's the honest truth of the matter. But yeah, this is just disgusting. This is a cesspool of scum and bigotry. And again, the fact that Jimmy Dore wants to associate with these people genuinely does blow my mind. As someone who used to be a big fan of his content, it genuinely blows my mind that he continues to be associated with these kind of people. And their blatant misogyny and bigotry and transphobia, fat phobia, just run down the list of every disgusting quality a human being can exhibit and profit off of, worst of all. So yeah, this is the little Twitter space they did. As this Twitter user, Frank, pointed out, tell me the difference between these leftists and the far right. There is no difference. These are not leftists. These people are on the far right. That's the truth of the matter. Anyway,
yeah,
100%. And Also, it's worth pointing out that, despite her many flaws, many of which we've pointed out on the show, and in fact, she's not above criticism, yada, yada, yada. Ilhan Omar has voted against literally every single National Defense Authorization Act for every year she's been elected. So she is one of the better progressives on, voting against the defense budgets. That's worth noting. It's also worth noting that she's, as I said before, strongly spoken out against our involvement in Syria. Here's a statement she made about airstrikes in Syria, saying she was deeply concerned with the legal justification of the airstrikes in Syria. Military action in a country where Congress has not authorized war is unconstitutional in almost all circumstances. So again, one of the few Congress members who actually has consistently spoken out against U.S. involvement in Syria, to try to paint her as some sort of a toady for, Syrian intervention, or someone who's, actively manufacturing consent for U.S. involvement in our occupation of Syria. That's just inaccurate.
Absolutely. And if you want to slam her for voting for the fucking special committee or whatever on China that the fucking crazies were trying to push forward, and she did like sign up and vote for, I think she was like the only squad member to do so, and like kind of a surprise, like, go for it. That was a bad decision. I don't think we need a special fucking investigation or anything that's going to fucking heighten our tension with China, right? I want de-escalation. Absolutely. And that was a bad vote, and she can be chastised for that. But what you
100%.
can't fucking do is pretend that she's like an ally to Al Qaeda and try and make and spread around fucking material that's gonna, promote violence against her, essentially.
Absolutely. And as one final cherry on top of the Jackson Hinkle roast, many people have been pointing out recently, after unearthing some old Instagram posts, that looks like Jackson Hinkle actually got dumped by his girlfriend, who's now, I believe, engaged to actor Jonah Hill. So a while ago, I think in like 2020 or 2019 or something like that, I guess Jackson was with this lady named Sarah Brady, who I believe is like a surfer or a surf instructor or something like that. And since then, she's actually become engaged to Jonah Hill, the actor, who's actually a seemingly really cool guy. A lot of actors in Hollywood are total narcissists and, all that stuff, sociopaths. From what I've seen of Jonah Hill, he actually seems pretty laid back. He seems pretty humble. I think recently he said he's not even going to be doing like the interview circuit anymore. Like, he's not interested in doing the whole press junket every time he does a movie and all that stuff. He seems like he's pretty based, all things considered. So, a lot of people have pointed out that perhaps that's the reason why Jackson Hinkle took the red pill.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if Salisa left me for somebody like Seth Rogen, I'd probably just kill myself. No, I'm just kidding. I would take the red pill too, Jackson. It's so funny though, because I was scrolling. I like woke up in the morning. You sent me the like news about this a couple days ago, and I got it in the middle of the night. And then I woke up the next morning. I was making breakfast with my homie Mariah, and I showed her the picture of Jonah Hill, and that girl like this side by side, and she goes, "Wait." And then she shows me a picture of Jonah Hill on the like red carpet when they're in matching pantsuits. And she was like, "This woman? Oh my God, she's a style icon, blah, 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 blah." I was like, oh, LOL. So apparently she's doing great. Her come up has been awesome. I thought it was hilarious that when we started our show, there was debate about whether or not that was Jonah Hill or Dave Portnoy. I thought that was fucking hilarious. I don't know if you know who Dave Portnoy is.
Yeah, the Barstool. Yeah.
And I was like, honestly, in that one picture, he does kind of look like Dave Portnoy. And if people knew I was going to talk about Francis Ngannou, that would have made sense for them to assume that. But yeah, look, I mean, it sucks, right? To be like, but I mean, there's no excuse to just take a fucking breakup, even if it's a guy that's like, 15 years older than your fucking ex-girlfriend who's a millionaire film director and Hollywood superstar. Like, that's a tough L, bro. You got to eat a tough L. That's why I don't live in California. I don't want to have to deal with that kind of shit. Like, oh, I went on a Tinder date with a lady that's now got 3 kids with Brad Pitt. It's like, well, fucking shit. I was never going to compete out here. You know what? Brad and I needed to switch places. I'm going to go back and try out his home school in Springfield, Missouri. That's where my picking's at. Okay. I'm not made for this Hollywood level of competition. I don't have $1 million. So I look like Jonah, but I don't have his bankroll. So I can't fetch a fucking, no, I'm kidding.
Right. Anyway, shout out to Jonah Hill. And shout out to Jackson Hinkle's ex-girlfriend for, probably being in a much better relationship. Imagine being in a relationship with such a disgusting misogynist. Anyway, that's just a funny cherry on top, not the most substantive thing ever, but still worth roasting. Shout out to you, Michael, for the $5. According to some of my political colleagues, there are Nazis on both the Russian and Ukrainian sides. Neither regime should be supported. 100%, Mike. Of course. Anyone that pretends everyone on the Russian side is like this pure, humanitarian interested actor, and then all the Ukrainians are Nazis. Obviously, that's a line of bullshit. Yes, there are Nazis in Ukraine. There's also Nazis in Russia. There's also Nazis here in America. There's some in Congress. Like, what the fuck? That's not an excuse to invade a country. Obviously, that's not an excuse to wage war and kill civilians, most of which who are not fucking Nazis or in any way affiliated with Nazism. So yeah, 100%. And of course, the grand irony too about folks like Jackson Hinkle is that while they pretend to be so anti-Nazi, they will then literally turn around and defend Kanye West, who famously went on Alex Jones' show like 2 weeks ago and said, "I love Hitler."
Gavin, I can't let you say that hate speech on our podcast. I need to reprimand you for that. See, guys, I'm just letting you know I'm holding it down. I don't let that shit fly. I don't let that go unchecked. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, yeah. Nick Fuentes, the whole gamut, right? Like, he doesn't give a, like, he wants to be associated with all those people because he's trying to court their audience, because he's all about money for him. It's all about like clout and, his own personal interests, yada, yada, yada. But look, guys, one thing we talk about all the time, if you go to fucking Europe, a lot of homogeneity, right? Like, people in America pretend that you go to Europe and people aren't racist as shit. That is a goddamn lie. It's a goddamn lie, okay? They are ruthlessly fucking racist towards all kind of immigrants, ruthlessly racist toward, like, to an extent that, like, it's oftentimes like it is more out than you would really be ever see in America, because it's so like yes, there's deeply entrenched white supremacists in America and we have our massive own battles, but it's kind of like everybody has the veneer of being post-racial. Like, we really live with the like lie that people believe that this is a post-racial America, which we all know isn't true, but everybody kind of abides by it. So if you are racist, you usually just keep that to yourself, unless you can, find a way to fucking inflict pain and devastation on somebody that you hate because of their skin, in a quiet manner. Usually it just manifests in exploitation, right? And not seeing people as entitled as you or whatever. But Gavin will attest to this as soon as he gets back here, that if you go to a lot of the countries in Europe where it's all fucking white people, like, and listen to how they treat people who are not white, like, Gavin, you're not, like, basically every European country, like, I'm not painting with a broad brush, like, all the European country where it's like all white folks, like, they are racist over there, and it's like more direct. Like, you talk to motherfuckers from Denmark and they'll be bitching up a storm about like dudes from Turkey and like these fucking, like, it is ridiculous.
Because it's like an ethno state in most of those countries, and obviously not all people from those European countries, and a lot of them are very they have a lot of tolerance for people of other races and all that stuff. Absolutely. But yeah, it is true that you get in some of those more ethnically homogenized European countries that are majority white or like 95% white. And yeah, they are quite racist. That's definitely true. People always, think about America as being like so racist, which of course it is. But the fact of the matter is that the fact that America is as diverse of a country as it is, much more diverse than most European countries. Most Americans actually have more, experience with other races and have more of that melting pot experience growing up in America versus a country like Sweden or France or something like that, where
Russia.
Right. And obviously the anti-immigration sentiments in those countries have been quite hot over the last like 10 years or so.
Even in fucking England, dude. Oh my God. Sometimes that's the only international kind of political coverage that I'll listen to sometimes. But sometimes I'll listen to like a fucking conservative guy and I'll realize that they're based in the UK. And I'm like, wow, you guys will go a little bit further with what you say about fucking people in this. I mean, I'm just saying, it's disgusting and hateful, but it's just, and sociologically, you're like, wow, this is what's acceptable in your country versus what's acceptable in our country. It's different. We're probably equally racist, but you can be like so much more forward about it, because like I was saying when you were gone, Gavin, we try and like keep up this veneer that we're a post-racial society, even though we're not. But anyway, shout out to you, Michael. Great point. And I would imagine that there's plenty of hateful people on both sides of that border, just like there's hateful people everywhere and good people everywhere. MAGA communism is cringe. but so too is Vosh's anarcho-Bidenism and anarcho-nativism. Oh yeah, you're preaching to the choir, bro. We have fucking we debated Vosh about his drone strike policy. Like, we don't have no West Wing third way fucking bullshit politics here, okay? And I'll sniff that shit out. I put in my time. I watched all fucking 6 seasons. No, I'm kidding, but yeah.
Yeah, shout out to you, Michael. We made that exact same point too. In fact, when the whole MAGA communism thing went down and was like trending on Twitter, I remember we reacted to it at the time, and I basically said this is like the Jackson Hinkle's version of Vosh's anarcho-Bidenism shtick. Like it really is the same, or a different side of the same coin, equally as idiotic. So thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate the $5. Always appreciate your comments. And shout out to you, Kevin, for the $4.99. Think that Haas, the 2-hole guy, is who influenced him. Also, some body shaming hypocrisy going on. That is true. Or is it okay when we don't like the person? Yeah, you're right. Haas definitely is a big part of the reason why Jackson Hinkle went down the right-wing rabbit hole, and just like the blatant misogynistic talking point rabbit hole as well. And I think Haas actually technically is the one that came up with MAGA communism. He's also the one that didn't know that how many holes a woman has in
he thought they peed out of the same hole that you have.
Yeah, that was
with.
it.
It's fucking hilarious.
No, he was like, what, did they pee out of their butt or something?
Fucking an idiot. Like, it couldn't pass like fucking 8th grade anatomy.
That was hilarious. Anyway, shout out to you, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
How to tell me you're fucking an incel without telling me you're an incel. It's like you've never seen a vagina in your life. Or, I mean, I guess you could just be a gay guy, but he's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Connor. Oh, and also I meant to say about that hypocrisy that you asked about, how we were body shaming Jackson and Haas. They ask for it so much and we deliver it so much. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of hypocrisy going on there, but I don't care about it. I think he was talking about how I said that Jackson looked like a 40-year-old, 22-year-old, and he does. So that's just a fucking fair analysis.
He does.
Do you guys remember when Jackson and Haas were saying that LGBT rights is Western imperialism? I remember them saying that on Twitter last year. Yeah, that's because they're huge simps for Russia, and Putin has a very intolerant stance on the LGBTQ community. And in fact, this is the kind of thing that started to give way for his like super bigoted, anti-trans, hateful commentary that was when he really dipped his toes in that water, was to come after trans people and make sure that, or like make content acting like they're all groomers, child molesters, lives a TikTok simp kind of a guy. But if you look at fucking Russian politics, like LGBTQ rights are still like, they're questionable over there, right? That, I mean, if anybody remembers the punk act Pussy Riot, that was a big fucking part of their political messaging. Yeah.
Pussy Riot, CIA, bro.
Anybody who's anti-Putin is CIA. One of my first articles ever that I wrote, it's like a sophomore in high school, was about like Pussy Riot protesting Putin, and I just was like, "Base,
it's a psyop." But yeah, no, 100% Connor, and that is a part of the reason why so many people on the right wing love Russia so much, is because it's basically a Christian fascist theocracy where minorities don't have as many rights, homosexuality is not tolerated, progressivism in general is rejected. It's absolutely one of the big reasons why right-wingers sympathize with Vladimir Putin so much. They like those strongman, authoritarian, Christian fascist tendencies of the guy and his country. There's no doubt about it. So thank you so much, Connor. Really appreciate that. And absolutely correct, Mike. There are Nazis in every country on earth. 100% correct, including Russia.
Yeah, unfortunately so, right? I mean, I hope it's not every country, but Jesus Christ, it might be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously going to be some fascist element in every country. Like, there's no denying that. Again, including here in America, probably, I mean, literally here in America, obviously. Like, there's no doubt about it. So thank you so much, Mike, for the super chat. We literally have Nazis like in the halls of our Congress. But yeah, shout out to you, Mike. Really appreciate that. I guess that basically wraps up our roast of Jackson Hinkle. I don't know what else to add to that discussion. Is there anything else you were wanting to chat about today, Zach?
I know you had your big announcement that you were excited about. We can't forget that. Gotta tease everybody. Get that.
I almost forgot. Yeah.
But other than that, yeah.
And did you find out if you're going to be present on tomorrow's live stream?
I would say it's probably 50-50, but why don't we go ahead and just announce it as if you're going to be, I'm going to be Kyle Kuklinskiing myself for the day. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, Zach is going to be excluded from the interview at the request of our guest.
Maybe Jimmy will do a segment about us now.
Anyway, big announcement. Make sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow you're not going to want to miss our Vanguard exclusive interview with Marianne Williamson, who will be returning to the Vanguard. She was actually one of our very earliest guests back in the early history of this program, but a lot has changed since then. It's been several years, and I have a lot of questions that I'm interested in asking Miss Williamson, who is actually, rumored to be exploring a challenge to Joe Biden for the Democratic Party nomination in 2024. Zach and I are both big fans of Marianne Williamson, despite having some differences of opinions on policy with her. I'm excited to get into some of those areas of disagreement as well. But yeah, really excited to welcome back Marianne Williamson to the program. I hope you guys are excited for that conversation as well. If there's any particular questions you guys have for Marianne that you'd like me to ask her, feel free to, throw those in the chat so I can get some ideas of stuff to ask her. Like I said, I have plenty of questions of my own, but if there's anything specifically that you guys are wondering about, I'd be interested in your input as well. So feel free to, drop some comments on Twitter. I'll probably put out a tweet saying Marianne's coming on the show tomorrow. What should I ask her? Stuff like that. And if you guys have any suggestions right now, feel free to drop those in the chat, like I said, because again, a lot of agreement with Marianne. I really love her energy. As a hippie myself, I always have dug her hippie energy, very, spiritual, new age kind of stuff. Definitely connects with people on that level in a way that a lot of political candidates and political figures do not. Again, don't agree with Marianne Williamson on everything, and I'm excited to get into some of those areas of friction on the show tomorrow. But yeah, really, really excited to be talking with Marianne Williamson in discussion on the Vanguard. It's going to be at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. So again, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not already, as well as the notification bell to ensure that you don't miss the interview.
Yeah, it should be a good one. The Flower Power Pod, Gavin and Marianne. It should be a good time. And yeah, I think it'll be a good show. Unfortunately, there's a 60-40 chance I will have to miss that one, but I'm super excited, and I'll be watching and probably chatting along from work. So yeah, if you don't see me on the mic, you'll see me in the chat.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it might just be me doing the interview solo. Zach has to work tomorrow, but it's going to be a great conversation regardless. Make sure you guys tune in for that. I think it's going to be a really enlightening discussion, as always, with Marianne Williamson, who's just such a kind person, radiates positivity, radiates good energy. So really excited to chat with her, and really honored that she's, willing to come back on our platform and entertain our questions, given the fact that we are a fairly small show. So, shout out to Marianne, and looking forward to fielding some questions, or rather her fielding some questions for me.
Yep, absolutely. And absolutely, Charlie, I'm with you. Make sure she answers the single most fundamental question in American politics. Really the only deciding factor, the only thing that's relevant if you have any political ambitions at all. The only thing that I could ever dream of asking anyone is, did you have the correct call on the singular issue of which all American leftism revolves around, this obscure call to hold up the vote for Nancy Pelosi's speakership? I understand she's no longer speaker and Hakeem Jeffries is the speaker, but 2 years ago, what was your thought on this specific niche political issue? Gavin, if you don't ask that, we're not friends anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt we'll get into that, unfortunately, Charlie. I don't want to keep beating that drum. Oh, I know. Yeah, I mean, if it comes up, it comes up. And honestly, I imagine she did support Force the Vote. But either way, excited to chat with Marianne. Really am. Everyone make sure to tune in for that tomorrow. And thanks everyone for tuning in today. I thought we had a great discussion, had a really fun time roasting Hackson Jinkle, as always. And yeah, Charlie, it's all good. Zach was mostly kidding. Obviously, we've spent a lot of time talking about Force the Vote. We do think it's an important strategic conversation to be had. It's just funny because it's, the dead horse has been beaten so many times now.
Oh yeah, like at this point, it's just like I don't know. I'm like, bro, like, we got to move on. We got to move on because it's hurting the left. It is hurting us now. And it's like, we milked the cow, bro. Like, were we part of the problem if there was a problem? For sure. For sure.
Let's relitigate Force the Vote for the 850th
Yeah,
time.
I've like even the last time we were doing it, I was bitching about it to Gavin. I was like, I don't want to fucking go on and talk about this anymore. But it was like not bitching to you about it, like I didn't want to actually do it, but just like bitching about like the left because it's like still the center of conversation.
Absolutely. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in today. Really enjoyed today's live show. Really appreciate all you guys as always for chatting along, for the super chats. Make sure to hit that like button on your way out if you have not already. That really helps us out. And speaking of help, huge shout out to the patron community. We do like to start and end all of our live shows with a big shout out to the patrons. A sincere thank you for your support. We would not be able to do the show without you guys. The Vanguard is made 100% possible thanks to the support of our patron community. So if you enjoy the show, please consider hitting up that link in the description, patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. We could really use the support, guys.
Yeah, peace out, everybody. Thanks for everybody tuning in today. Hit the like button, subscribe button. You're all comrades to us. Yeah, have a good day. Be sure to hit the notification bell so you guys get notified tomorrow when the Marianne Williamson interview is live.
Absolutely. Peace out, guys.